Hello and welcome to Pickleball Therapy, the podcast dedicated to your pickleball improvement. Hope you're having a great week. Having a good week so far here. Been walking a lot this week. I think I walked 3 times for about 30 minutes each time. That's apparently pretty good for your back and for your hips and for your skin and everything. So I've been doing some walking. I think it's good for your cardio too, but I've been doing it more for the back and everything else. Keep the hips going. You got to walk a certain way though. I watched a YouTube video, learn how to walk. So that's been I'm 50 something, 52 I think, and learning how to walk. So that's life. But I think that's one of the beauties of being alive, is staying curious and always wanting to learn something new. So that's been my week, and hope you've been having a good and curious week as well. This week's episode, we're going to be talking about the soft game some more, but we're going to be talking about it a little bit different angle. I'm going to give you 4 uses for the soft game, and maybe by the end you'll be convinced that the soft game is the most effective way to play pickleball. And I'm going to repeat that several times in this podcast. The most effective way to play pickleball. And then in the riff, I'm going to talk about arm injuries. A friend of mine and I were talking today on the phone about some injuries he had in his wrist. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about arm injuries and maybe give you some ideas of how to prevent them. So stay tuned for the podcast. If you want to have the most fun you've ever had on the pickleball court, while at the same time learning the skills and strategies that you need to play your best pickleball, check out our We Are Pickleball camps. You can find out more at wearepickleball.com/camps. I'll link to it below in the show notes. When you're ready to treat yourself to the best and most immersive pickleball camp available anywhere, join us at a We Are Pickleball camp. You'll find our 2022 schedule in the link below. This much fun should be illegal. All right, let's talk about the soft game. We've been hitting the soft game pretty hard over the last couple months, 2-3 months. Trying to convince you that the soft game is the way you want to head with your game. And as I mentioned in the introduction, is the most effective way to play pickleball. Now, this is coming from a player who did not initially, when I first started playing, did not think that the soft game was necessary or a necessary part, something necessary for me to add to my game. I thought that I could just go out on the court, being a former tennis player, use my pretty strong forehand in tennis and in pickleball, and just blow people off the court. And it works sometimes, sure. You can overpower some players with some hard shots. But what happened in my history is that eventually you run into a player or a group of players against whom that just doesn't work. They're not overpowered by your shots. They're not cowed by the power that you're bringing. And they're playing a soft game. And so you're saying to yourself, okay, what am I going to do now when I'm playing against this player who's trying to play this soft game? Not trying, they're effectively playing a soft game against me, and my hard game isn't working. If I don't have the soft game available there, I'm in trouble, right? I don't have another gear that I can get into and play in a way that will be more effective against those players. So what I wanted to do today is share with you 4 specific uses of the soft game so that you can hopefully understand a little more about it and maybe decide to bring it into your game, or understand also a little more about how to use a soft game. If you're already trying to use a soft game, maybe understand a little more about how you can actually implement it when you're out on the pickleball court. So let's start by defining the soft game. What are we talking about with the soft game? The soft game is a game that is played utilizing what is the most important rule in pickleball. The most important rule in pickleball is not, there's a lot of colloquial kind of things like, make your next shot, don't make an error, things like that. Those are fine. But I'm talking about like rules of the game, rules that are in the rule book that dictate how we play this game. The most important rule in pickleball is by a mile the no volley zone rule, right? That area of the court and not being able to volley inside that zone. If you can imagine a pickleball court where you did not have a no volley zone rule, in other words, where you could volley from anywhere on the court, you're not playing pickleball anymore. You're playing something else. You're playing basically mini tennis because you can rush up to the net and slam balls. In that case, we would never advocate hitting like a third shot drop or any of those types of shots. It would make sense because if the other player can just run up to the net and slam it, you're never going to hit a ball like that. So it'd be an entirely different game. It might be very fun. I don't know, but it would not be pickleball. So if you're going to play this game, right, when you sign up to play this game, you sign up to play by the rules of this game, the rules of pickleball. The most important rule being the no volley zone rule. And so if you are not using the no volley zone to your advantage, you're giving up a huge part of this game. And what ends up happening is if your opponents know how to use a no volley zone, right, if they know how to leverage that space to their benefit, then you're never going to be able to overcome that disadvantage that you have because you don't know how to do that. And the soft game is essentially using that zone, or not essentially, it is using that part of the court, using the no volley zone to slow the game down, to take control of the game and things like that by using soft, unattackable shots, dinks and those types of shots. Dinks are really the paradigm soft game shot. It could be a volley dink, it could be a third shot drop, it could be a dink from your no volley zone line. Whatever it is, those shots are intended to be soft and are intended to use the no volley zone to your advantage. So let's talk about 4 different ways that you can use the soft game to your advantage. The first one, and probably I would say it's the most important one, is it gets you out of trouble. Whenever you're in a pickleball game and you get into trouble in that game, you can use the soft game to get you out of that trouble. You can use the no volley zone as like a home base when you were a kid and played tag or a game like that. It's a safe space. So the no volley zone, if I can hit the ball in there over and over again, I'm going to be perfectly fine. One of my favorite stories is I was at a tournament being run by Jim and Yvonne Hackenberg, friends of ours from Michigan. And they always run a fantastic tournament. If you're in Michigan and get to play in their tournament, highly recommend it. It's I think it's Fever at the Zoo or something at the Zoo. It's in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Look it up. A lot of fun. And what happened in the tournament was Jim goes back to get a ball that's been smashed by his opponent. He's about 8 or 10 feet off the court. And all he does is he just lifts the ball up and drops it inside the no volley zone, basically taking away the disadvantage that he was under at that point in the rally, and being able to get it back to neutral, if you will, or at least neutralize that disadvantage that he was under by using the soft game. So number one use of the soft game is to get yourself out of trouble, to basically get yourself out of a tough spot. The second main area that you can use the soft game relates to this. It's getting yourself out of trouble, but specifically it's getting yourself out of trouble when you're on the serve side. Remember that when you're on the serve side, you're at a disadvantage, so you have to get yourself out of that hole every time. When you start on the serve side, you're always in a hole. If you don't understand the difference between the serve and the return side, that's beyond the scope of what we're talking about today. Highly recommend you check us out at We Are Pickleball. This is the kind of stuff that we talk about. This is the kind of stuff that we explain to pickleball players to help you understand the difference between the serve side and the return side, and understanding that will then lead you to the conclusion that, hey, maybe the soft game is what I need because I need to get out of this trouble that I'm in every single time that I go back to serve. So that's number 2. So you have getting out of trouble specifically when I'm on the serve side. Number 3 is controlling tempo. Controlling tempo is such an important part of any sport. Pickleball is no different. If you can control the tempo of the game and play the game at a tempo that is more favorable to you and your team, you're more likely to have a successful result in that rally and also in the game. And you can use a soft game to do this. The fourth one I'm going to give you is related to the third one. It is specifically to diffusing bangers. That's a way of controlling tempo. Bangers want to bang. Bangers want to speed things up. They want to go crazy out there and hit the ball hard all the time, smash everything. You can use the soft game to say, wait a minute, I'm not interested in playing as fast as you want to play. Let's slow this thing down. And by controlling tempo, what you'll find is it's going to be better for you, but it's also going to give you a ton of control and a ton of confidence out there when you're playing if you can control the tempo of the game. So hopefully those 4 benefits of the soft game will help you evaluate the soft game and bring it into your game. During the riff, we're going to talk about arm injuries and give you some ideas as to how you might potentially avoid injuring that arm so you can play longer. Stay tuned for the riff. Are you ready to finally commit to your game, to get serious about your pickleball and your improvement? If you are, check out the We Are Pickleball System. It is the complete system that you need to get you to where you want to be as a pickleball player. Join CJ and me for our free 3-part mini-series where we're going to be talking about how to avoid pop-ups, how to deal with bangers, and more. Make sure you're part of the We Are Pickleball mailing list so you're notified of the mini-series and you can sign up for it. You can join the We Are Pickleball mailing list by going to wearepickleball.com/pillars. You'll get our 3 pillars of pickleball and be part of our mailing list. I'll link to it below. Come to our mini-series, improve your game, and learn more about the complete pickleball system. We'll see you there. All right, let's talk about arm injuries. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he was mentioning how he was having trouble with his wrist. His wrist was hurting him, and it kept him off the court for a couple of months. And we started chatting about mechanics and also about paddle. And so I wanted to address both of those and hopefully give you some ideas that might help you avoid or minimize the chances of getting injury on your wrist or your forearm. Before I give you this advice, I got to tell you, I'm not a doctor. I am simply someone who's played tennis for a long time and played pickleball for a long time now. So I'm offering you non-medical advice. If you have any questions about anything I'm saying here, ask your doctor before you do anything. So let's talk about mechanics. So the mechanics that we were talking about was how much wrist is being used in the shot. So if you think about the wrist in terms of relative size, muscle and joint and muscles around it, it's pretty small. When you compare it to, say, your shoulder or your biceps or your triceps, those are much larger muscle groups. And so if you're hitting in a way that you're using a lot of wrist, so whether you're trying to snap the paddle over for a power or you're trying to bring it around, torque it around for like spin and things like that, we don't advise that you do that. In fact, we have a video coming out tomorrow talking about spins and how you don't need them. And we've done this a million times telling you that spins are simply not necessary to have in your game. You can have them if you want them, if they make you feel happy, knock yourself out, but spins are not necessary. And if you're using your wrist to generate a lot of spin, you're probably not getting a good bang for your buck there, probably getting more errors than you think. And what we're talking about here is you're probably stressing out that wrist more than it needs to be stressed out. Think about a pickleball day, whether you're playing 2 hours, 3 hours, however long you're playing, you're using that wrist a lot, using those small muscles a lot, even without trying to torque it for power, like, snapping the wrist for power or trying to bring the paddle around for spin. So try and give your wrist a little bit of a break in terms of the amount of action you're trying to ask it to drive, and instead consider using more of your shoulder for your movement, because your shoulder and the larger muscles around your shoulder and the upper arm, your biceps and your triceps, will probably be able to handle that better. Second thing you can consider if you're having wrist pain is the type of paddle that you're using. Are you using a long paddle, like a longer than traditional shape paddle? Are you using a thick paddle? Those types of paddles tend to transmit a lot of the energy of the shot into your arm. And the longer paddle, the issue with that one potentially is the weight, the swing weight of the paddle. If you want to find out more about that, send me an email at tony@wearepickleball.com and I'll send you a couple of videos you can watch about swing weight and things like that. But consider the type of paddle you're using. If the paddle you're using is either thick, meaning a lot of energy is transmitted into your arm, or longer than normal, that could be causing an issue as well. Anyway, so hopefully that'll help you stay on the court. You can also do some exercises, by the way, on your forearm and your wrist to keep it, you can stretch it. You can do some strength exercises on your forearm to help you stay on the court longer. That's part of what we call the athletic pillar inside We Are Pickleball. You got to really look at all three pillars when you're playing pickleball. If your body is broken down, I don't care how good your third shot is, because you won't be able to hit it. So make sure you spend some time on your body and on your mind, in addition to your shots, in addition to your study of the game. All right, so that's the podcast this week. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again next week. We're probably going to hit the soft game again. I have this paradox thing I want to talk about. I was going to talk about it today, but we talked enough today, so we'll bring that up next week. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please give it a rating on whatever platform you're listening to this on. And as always, please share it with your friends. If you enjoyed it, they probably will too. Have a great week, and we'll see you at the next podcast.